About the bike. This right here is a triathlon bike or a time trial. There's an airplane over top. A time trial or a TT bike. Couple of big differences from a traditional road bike are the handlebars. The handlebars, if you're familiar with a traditional road bike, curl back. These go forward, so that these are your brakes and these are your shifters. The other big difference between a tri-bike and a road bike is the seat tube. This seat tube right here on a road bike is a little bit more angled backwards, whereas this slams you forward to use some different muscles in your legs to make it easier to run after you cycle. So what do you look like on a tri-bike? So on a tri-bike, I am almost laying down. I have access only to the shifters in this position. I have to bring my hands here to be able to brake. But this position is generally more aerodynamic, and you'll see a lot of these bikes out at triathlon events. Right here, I don't know if you can see this very well, but these are what we call clip-in pedals. Most of the bikes that you will see out at a triathlon have clip-in pedals. That makes it to where when you put your bike shoes on, you clip in to your bike, which means your foot is essentially stuck. So the difference being that if you don't have clip-in pedals, you have a normal pedal with running shoes. Both are acceptable for triathlons, whichever you're most comfortable with, and we can have a one-on-one conversation. I would recommend clip-in pedals for people that are familiar with cycling, are comfortable on their bike, and if you are not in that position yet, which is totally fine, you can more than easily complete a triathlon with normal running shoes and regular pedals. But if you want to make cycling a little bit more efficient, this is the way to go with these type of pedals. These wheels, you'll notice, they're a little bit thicker than a normal road bike wheel. That is meant for aerodynamics. Again, not a must-have, but just some additional gear that helps to make you a little bit faster. So here is a traditional road bike. I'm trying to make sure you can see this. With the handlebars that you're probably most familiar with that curl back around, when you sit on the seat, you rest your hands here, have access to the brakes and to the shifters. You sit more upright and you're not laying down. Some people do add aero bars onto this bike so that you can lay down. Not something I would totally recommend, but if you really want aero bars on your road bike, I could definitely talk with you about that. But everything down here is essentially the same. The wheels are not aerodynamic, they're just normal road wheels. And essentially, if you were going to say, hey Matt, I'm going to buy one bike, and I'm going to do a couple of triathlons, but really I just want to be able to cycle safely and comfortably, a road bike is probably what I would recommend. The tri-bike or the TT bike is built for speed. They're not the most comfortable things in the world, but they are faster and more efficient for triathlons. Next up are the different styles of helmets. This is a road helmet. This is what I would recommend that you go out and buy. Goes on just like this. Make sure that it's tightened down. Make sure that your strap is not dangling low. It needs to sit about an inch off of your chin. And you want to make sure that you've got yourself buckled in whenever you ride a bike. I highly recommend, I'm sure all of you are familiar with this, but anytime you're on a bike, whether it's in your neighborhood, out on the road, especially out on the road with a group, you want to be wearing a helmet. Traditional road helmet, lots of vents for ventilation, but mostly for safety. You'll see a lot of these out at the race. This is what we call an aero helmet or a TT helmet. Worn the same way, also built for aerodynamics, just like the wheels. Buckles the same way, has a visor, but it looks long and pointy when you wear it. People look funny wearing them, but they do save you some time in terms of how much time you spend on the bike. Just another cool little gadget that you'll see out there. Unless you're really interested in diving into triathlons as a sport, this is not a must-have. Different types of shoes. This is what we call a racing flat. Real lightweight, real flexible. I'll kind of get up close to the camera so you can see. very minimal sole. They have what's called quick tie laces on them, so that when I get to my transition area, this is a shoe that I actually race in, I don't have to tie my shoes. I just slip my foot in there. It's got ventilation holes on the bottom so that water can drain out, and I'm ready to go without having to tie shoes or put on socks. A lightweight trainer is what I would recommend that most people purchase and train in and also race in for the most part. It's got a little bit more of a heel, a little bit more substantial shoe, but still flexible. Normal laces, nothing fancy. This is the New Balance 1400. This is my everyday training shoe, and if I'm going to run anything longer than a 10K, this is probably the shoe that I would go for. Anything shorter than that, I'll be in my racing flat. This is what we call a race belt. Not a must-have, but it definitely makes competing in triathlons easier. You will get a number. I think I've got one right here. And rather than having to pin that number onto your jersey and worry about it coming off or flapping in the wind, I'm going to put on this race belt in between the bike and the run. I'll have my number already on there. Put your number on these two little straps. And you're ready to go. Every triathlon race that you will compete in will require that you wear a number during the run for sure. Your bike numbers will actually go on your bike and on your helmet. And when you're in the swim, I think the only required gear that they will hand you is a swim cap. And that should be color-coded based on your age group. But this is intended so that when I get off of my bike and I'm getting ready to run, I've got my belt ready to go. I head out of transition, slap it on, and I don't have to worry about my number falling off. Sunglasses, personal preference. I typically don't wear sunglasses when I'm racing, just because it's one more thing to mess with. And swim goggles. Find a pair that you like, that are comfortable, that fits your face. I prefer ones that have a little bit of a tint to block some of the sun. Most of the triathlons that we do start about the time that the sun is coming up, and so you're going to want a little bit of protection from the sun as it's coming off of the lake. And so all of those, the swim goggles that I own actually have a little bit of a protective film. Swim paddles for strengthening. This is a training tool. I wear these anytime a swim workout says to pull. This is what you put on your hands, and it just adds resistance as you're swimming. You really have to focus on your stroke, and this will let you know whether your hands are in the right position or whether you're dragging water, and it'll also help strengthen your shoulders and your core as you swim essentially with resistance. This is a pull buoy, again also used in swim workouts. It goes right here. And you basically use this anytime you're doing a pull drill or anytime you want to stabilize the legs and not kick. And that just helps you to focus on technique and strength of your upper body. But this is where it goes. I see a lot of people that put it down in between their ankles, and that's not necessarily where it goes, but a common mistake. But this is where a pull buoy goes, and you keep your legs still, but it helps to keep your body level on the water, which makes it more efficient in terms of swimming. Clothing, which is a common question. What do I wear for a triathlon? Obviously, I have men's triathlon clothing, but women's clothing is very similar for triathlon. This is a tri-top. It looks like a singlet. Fits very, very tight. You can swim in this. It's breathable. It's got a zipper. On the back, it's got a couple of pockets for nutrition, something that we'll talk about later. But just something that's comfortable, that fits, that's skin tight. You don't want a lot of drag. And you want to be able to swim, bike, and run in whatever it is that you purchase for your triathlon. I don't recommend changing clothes in a transition, especially for a short race. And both the sprint and the Olympic are considered shorter in distance, and so you don't want to waste time changing clothes or having to try and find a porta potty to be able to do that in during transition. So that's a tri-top. These are what's called tri-shorts, a little bit shorter than cycling shorts. Both of them, just like cycling shorts, they are spandex, so they're skin tight. The pad in these tri-shorts is very, very thin compared to a cycling pad, probably a third of the thickness And the reason that is because you don't, most people don't want to swim or run in cycling shorts because of the thickness of the pad. It feels kind of like you're wearing a diaper. But these shorts, the pad is very, very minimal, and you can swim, bike, and run in these. Obviously, it doesn't give you the type of protection that cycling shorts does when you're on the bike, but you're intended to be on the bike for a very short amount of time during a triathlon, and you want a minimal pad so that you can run and swim freely. Okay, so briefly I want to walk through how to set up a transition. You'll do this before the race starts. And basically the rule of thumb is you're going to have a towel. You're always going to be, most races will tell you if they want you on the right or on the left of your bike. Your bike will be hanging on a rack, and you'll have a section right next to your bike where you will set up your transition. If you have a bag, your bag has to go in this same general area. And every race is a little bit different, but you'll want your bag kind of right here. And then your transition area will go on the towel. And the best rule of thumb I can give you in terms of how to set up your transition area is to set it up logically in what you're going to do first, second, third, fourth, and so on. So when I get out of the water, I want to come to my transition area and spend the least amount of time here. So the first thing I do is make sure that my cycling shoes, if you're going to use cycling shoes, are open and kind of off to the side so that when I get here I can step on the towel, dry off my feet, put my feet in my shoes. Hopefully much quicker than this. Grab my straps, and I'm ready to go. If you're using a tri-bike, you can obviously set your helmet right here. If you're using a road bike, more than likely you won't have a place on your bike that you can set your helmet, so your helmet will go right here as well. So when I get here, shoes, helmet, buckle the helmet always, and now I'm ready to take my bike off of transition and ready to go. We're going to make sure that that bike is ready to go in the right gear. I've already got my water bottle. If you've got a bike computer, your bike computer is cleared and ready to go. And I jog my bike out of transition. You will not be able to ride your bike out of transition, but you will be able to walk it quickly or jog next to it, and then you'll hop on your bike whenever you get to the what's called a mount line, and that is basically a line saying that you can get on your bike. If you're wearing your running shoes while you bike, obviously some of this will change, but if you're wearing cycling shoes and then running shoes, your running shoes will go here. And if you've got a race belt and a race number, I always put those ends inside of my shoe so that that doesn't blow away, so that when I get here off of my bike, take my helmet off, set it down, rack my bike, then put my helmet down, and then I take my cycling shoes off, put my race number on, shoes on. If you're wearing socks, you want your socks inside of your shoes, just kind of with the edges hanging out so that they don't flop around if somebody bumps into your area. Shoes on. Tie my shoes. If I'm going to grab something in terms of nutrition, I would have that sitting here as well. They've got water out on the course, so you won't need to take a water bottle for the most part. And other than that, you're ready to go to start the run. Obviously, everyone's going to set up their transition a little bit different, but this is probably the simplest, most efficient way, is just to put it in the logical order that you're going to do the race in. You're only going to be able to have a very small area, so you don't want to bring a bunch of stuff. Anything else needs to go in your bag, and I highly recommend that you zip up your bag and make sure that you don't take anything valuable out there, because the bags are sitting there during the race, before the race, after the race, and you probably will not be able to get to your bag immediately following the race. There will be a lag. Hopefully they've got a secure transition area, but better safe than sorry. If you